Okay everyone, I said I would do a tutorial for the clutch, the vinyl clutch with a zipper and tassel. This is the clutch that I made originally. It has this heavy duty fashion zipper that I got at Joann's, and this is the inside. The vinyl I also got at Joann's. It's a little bit more heavy duty than the one that I'm using now. I wanted to show you all the supplies you'll need. You'll need a pencil, or I like to use this chalk pencil on my vinyl, especially if it's a dark color, because it wipes off pretty easily. These are the heavy-duty fashion zippers I get at Joann's. I believe the brand is C&C, and it's usually in the Notion section next to all the trims and everything. And you'll need a pair of scissors, and then I already cut my lining and my vinyl, and then you'll need contrasting thread, matching thread as well. I'm going to be using the yellow thread on the underside because it matches the lining. And then I didn't have any black, which I didn't know until I got home, so I'm just going to use a dark gray, and it should be just fine with this black vinyl. So this is the black vinyl that I'm using. This is what it looks like on the inside. So this is a little bit thinner black vinyl. The original vinyl that I used looks like this on the inside. It'll have markings. So one thing I want to mention about this is if this is a little too thin, which it might be, I'm going to make it, I haven't used this one yet, you could use an interfacing, a really thick interfacing, which I do have. I have an iron-on interfacing that I'm not going to use with this one because I'm just going to try it, and this will be kind of my prototype to see how it is. But if you don't like how thin this is, you can see how thin it is, then you can use a thick interfacing, and that should help. And then I'm going to use this lining on the inside. So the first thing you're going to do is cut your 2 rectangle pieces. I made mine 10 inches by 13 inches. The next thing you're going to do is cut your lining 1 inch longer than your actually 1 inch taller than your 2 square pieces. I made mine 11 inches by 13 inches because when you line this, you're going to want to fold it down about 1 inch before you insert your zipper, so that this line here is clean on the inside. As you can see on this one, I folded it down to make sure the line was clean on the inside and there's no frayed edges. The other thing about this clutch is that you can see I didn't fold the outside vinyl down because this is such a thick vinyl that you should be able to cut it pretty clean, and you won't have to fold it, and it should be a pretty clean line. This one I did the same thing, but again, this one is so thin that it wouldn't be hard to fold this down. I just don't want to deal with it, and it's a clean edge, so I don't think I need to. So cut these 2 pieces. Next thing you're going to do, the other good thing about this vinyl, it has kind of a felt backing. The good thing about this is that when you fold your lining piece down and press it against this, you can see it's not going anywhere. It sticks to this felt, which is really good for sewing the zipper because everything stays in place like it's supposed to. So you're going to put the wrong sides together. These are the wrong sides. You can put the wrong sides together and fold down, like I said, about 1 inch. And you want there to be a little bit more room on top, the vinyl area between this lining, because as you can see on this one, when you sew it, you don't want the zipper inside to catch this. And you can see I kind of made it a little bit long right here, but luckily it doesn't catch. This side's a little bit better view. If you make it quite a bit shorter than the vinyl, it won't catch the zipper on the inside, and you won't have to worry about it kind of creeping up to catch as well. So you're going to do that for both pieces, and I don't pin it because I don't want to put any holes in the vinyl, and that's something else that you have to remember. Especially this thicker vinyl, don't pin it. I don't know if any of you have clips. Binder clips would work, or even a clip that's not as tight would work as well. So go ahead and do that for both pieces. I measure the bottom so that it meets up. Like I said, wrong sides together. And then I just take the top, and it might be more than 1 inch, it's not a big deal. Just take the top and Doesn't have to be perfect. Mine never is. I just fold it down so that you can see the vinyl on the top. And I'm just actually going to leave it like this. One trick that you can do, I always have my glue gun out when I'm making these because these are really handy to use glue guns with. With this one, I put a dab of glue on the inside over here just to make sure that when I sewed my zipper on, which is going to be the next step, this goes really fast, to make sure that this top part didn't move when I inserted the zipper like this. And we're going to sew the zipper on just like this. But with, like I said, with this fabric, it sticks to this felt backing, so you don't have to do that, and that's really good. So now I'm going to go sew my zipper in, and I'll show you how to insert the zipper, but I'm probably not going to show you actually me sewing the zipper in here. So what you're going to do is these are going to be your two pieces. So this is going to be your inside, this is going to be your inside. So all you want to do is make sure that your zipper is lined up with enough space on both sides that it's even. And then you're going to be sewing your zipper basically like this in between these two pieces. So what I do is I leave these separate so that I can sew this one on first. I basically just put the zipper down like this. I hold it in place. Like I said, I don't pin it at all because I don't want the pin marks to show through the vinyl. So you really, this is kind of a trial by error process. If you're not familiar with putting zippers in, it just takes practice, and that's what I've learned, and there's really no easy way around doing zippers. So I just kind of line it up like this. I make sure to open the zipper, make sure it's even, and then I take it over to my machine, and once I have this kind of clamped down in this area right here, when I put my presser foot down, it stays pretty well in there, and you don't have to worry about it slipping. So I'm going to go sew this in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I sewed my zipper here. Ta-da. So you're going to want to make sure your zipper is open at least halfway. I usually like to try to open it as much as I can because we're going to be flipping this inside out after we sew it. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, this is a 9-inch zipper. I just kind of out of habit always buy the 9-inch zippers and build my projects around that. The reason I had you cut it so long, the 13 inches, is because of that tapered effect that everybody likes so much on the edges. To get that, you have to have some length over here on this side and on this side, so that when you sew, get rid of my thread here, when you sew this, you're going to be sewing the right sides together of the vinyl. So the two sides of the vinyl are going to be together. You are going to be sewing actually all along the inside. You're sewing along here. Usually what I like to do is I start at the bottom corner. I start at the bottom corner and I work my way up. I pick a spot to curve over, and depending on how sharp you want your edges, like this on the outside, depending how sharp you want your edges, that's how you're going to determine how you sew this part. So the more rounded you want it, the more rounded you're going to sew. The more sharp you want it, you're just going to go straight down. So I'm probably just going to go straight down here. And what you want to do is take a pencil, and what I usually like to do is I just fold it over to make sure that they're even. And I make sure that I sew this part right here where the zipper ends. I sew to right about here to make sure that it's just, I don't want this selvage part of the zipper to show. So when I come up over the corner, I just sew straight that way. So I pick a spot where I'm going to go up, and actually I want to do this side because that's the side I'm sewing. I pick a spot where I want to go up and I line it up on the other side, right about here. And that's the spot where I pick to sew straight up. And I just make a line down to that spot, and I just try to follow that as much as I can. Again, if you don't get it perfect, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to sew starting down here. going to, also the other thing I forgot to mention, I've mentioned it in my comments, but I haven't actually mentioned it here. I'm using a leather needle. With this vinyl, I don't think it's necessary, but just to be safe, I kept my leather needle in my machine because of using the thicker vinyl last time. It slices right through the vinyl, it's great, and actually this vinyl, sewing with it has been easier than sewing with some of the other fabrics I use, so it's really easy. Alright, I'm just going to sew up the side. Stop at my angle line here, swivel my fabric, and sew right along this line. Now when you get to this spot, depending on what your machine is like, usually I like to release the presser foot when I get to this point, because the tighter it is, the less likely you are to go up over the top of the zipper. So kind of force it through. And then since the presser foot is released, I go over it a few times back and forth to make sure that it's secure. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Actually, I'm going to sew on this side, so I'm going to mark on this corner where to sew up so that they're even. Make sure they actually are even. Erase that line. Release the presser foot, over it a few times, should be good, snip that. Now I'm just going to sew the very bottom. I'm running out of time here on my video capabilities, so I'm going to do this kind of fast. You just sew along the bottom to seal the two bottom pieces together. Stitch. I'm going to go over that again. Want the corners to be really secure. Snip, snip. Now what I like to do right here is I like to trim the corners to get rid of that bulk. So I trim the corners here. Be sure you don't get too close to your stitch, because a little wear and tear, you could go right through that. I'm actually going to reinforce this side a little bit more as well. Good. Now, the last thing you can do if you have them, because I don't want to use my serger on this, because I really don't know how my serger is going to handle this vinyl, and I don't want to find out by breaking my needles. If you have pinking shears, what I like to do is trim the edges with my pinking shears. The thicker the vinyl, the harder it is to use your pinking shears, but it goes through. You just have to work with it a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way down, but just to give you an example, I go all the way down and around. And this is why we left the zipper open, so we can easily access it. I also will mention, for you ladies who are actually going to be selling these, if you have tags that you want to sew on the inside, I definitely recommend, well, I don't just recommend, you kind of have to do it. You have to put the tag on to the inside piece before you attach the zipper, so that it doesn't go through the front of the bag. Turn this right side out. I'm going to press all the corners in. Make it as even as possible. This is where you get your corner edges here. And voila, you have your pouch. I like the way this turned out with a thinner vinyl. I think it still works really great as a pouch. And this is my inside. I think it works really well with the black. Thanks guys, I hope this was informative and I hope you were able to follow along. The next one, next video that I post, I'm actually going to be showing you how to do the tassel. With this one, I just cut a few pieces and tied it to there. But the white one I did, the ivory one, I made an actual tassel, and the next video I post is going to be the tassel. I'll show you how to do that. Thanks for watching. Okay, so this is the tutorial for the tassel that I did for the ivory bag, and I'm using the same material that I used for my bag before. You'll have to excuse the mess, I just cut all of my pieces for my vinyl. So this is the bag I just made. Now to give it a little extra something something, I'm going to make a tassel for it and attach it to the zipper. So you're going to cut 3 pieces. You can make this as thick as you want, as tall as you want, but since this is a little bit thinner vinyl, you should probably keep that in mind. The thicker the vinyl, the shorter you'll want this piece to be lengthwise, because after you cut all the tassels, you're going to roll it up, and the thicker the vinyl is, the messier it could kind of get. So I cut mine 8 inches by 10 inches, an 8 by 10 rectangle. I'm going to fold it over. The other piece I cut was a thin strip, and really I just measure out the opening on the zipper. Now these are all going to be different. If you don't have the same kind of zipper I have, you might want to use a different one. I measured it, I'm not even sure how long it is, to be honest. I just kind of eyeball this part. So this is about 4 inches long, and that should be enough room to attach to your tassel. What you're going to do is you just want to make sure that this is thin enough to fit through the zipper, and this is how we're going to be attaching it. So before you decide that you're going to use this piece, just make sure it fits through the zipper. Okay, so we're just going to fold this rectangle lengthwise, or hot dog wise, as we say in kindergarten. And you're going to cut strips as thick as you want them to be. This also, I just eyeball. I don't do any lines measuring. It's a tassel. It's really not going to be that noticeable once you roll it up. But I like to leave about 1/2 inch at the top. So I take my scissors, I cut them as thick as I want to be up here, and then I just follow that line all the way down, and I keep cutting to the same line. Now what you can also do if you want to is measure, take a ruler and draw a line over the top. I don't think it's really necessary, honestly. For those of you who need it to be perfect, feel free to do that. The tassel lengths or widths don't even have to really be perfect. Like I said, once it's all rolled up, it's not that noticeable. So you're just going to cut all the way down. I'm going to keep cutting mine, and I'll be back when that's all finished and show you the next step. Okay, just as a reference, I wanted to show you this tassel that I made for the white one. I had to run and get it. I didn't have it with me. So this is the one that I had originally made and posted for any of you who forgot. Okay, you're going to use your glue gun now for the rest of this. And I use a medium to light heat glue gun. This is actually a low temp glue gun, and then I use high temp glue sticks, which works. I don't know why. The high temp, of course, I don't, for those of you who aren't familiar with glue guns, the high temp glue guns are for bigger projects, things that you really, really want to stay, but also for materials that can tolerate a high heat. And I'm not too sure about this vinyl, and honestly, the only one that I have is the low temp, so I'm using it. And it worked on this thicker vinyl, so I know it'll work on this one. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna place a little piece of glue here. Now, what you could do is glue all the way down. I don't suggest that because by the time you get to the end, it's going to be dry and you're gonna have to re-glue it anyway. So we're gonna actually just roll. Start at the end and just start rolling your vinyl all the way down. Now this is really thin, so if you're working with a thin vinyl, you're gonna have to be careful that it doesn't start to kind of pucker. It likes to do that when you start to manipulate it. So try to keep it as straight as possible. Do 1 to 2 inches of glue at a time. Keep rolling. Like I said, I made this one pretty long, so it's going to be pretty thick because it's such a thin vinyl. But for a thicker vinyl, you might want to do maybe just 6 inches, 7 inches. That should give you a pretty good thickness on your roll. And also, if you're finding that it's too thick when you start to roll it, which I'm kind of finding on mine now, if you're finding that it's too thick, you can always stop. You can cut this part off and just be done with it. And actually, I think that's what I'm gonna do, because I thought that I would need more to make this really thick, but it's actually really thick already. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut, and I actually can use the rest of this for another tassel. So I'm not wasting anything. I'm just gonna cut this. I'm going to take my glue gun and make sure this is secure. Now don't worry about what it looks like right here, because that's what that other piece is for. That actually is going to cover all this mess here. And when I say the other piece, I'm talking about this piece that we cut earlier. What you can also do is you can wait to cut this piece until you get to the end and figure out kind of what you need the length and the width to be. That works as well, but I kind of had an idea, so I just went ahead and cut mine. Now before we do this, we're going to want to make sure that this piece that we attach to the zipper is attached to the tassel as well. So you're going to fold this piece in half. You're going to attach the folded side, not the open two-part side, through the zipper, the hole at the end of the zipper. You're going to take the two-piece side at the end. You're going to loop it through here. Pull it. This attaches this to the zipper securely. Now you're going to make sure that this tassel is going to stay on here. So what I like to do is I like to make sure and glue this part really well before I start to wrap. That gives me a little bit more reassurance that it's not going anywhere. And I'm actually going to snip off a little part of this because it doesn't need to be that long. And I'm going to attach this here. Make sure that the ends aren't poking out at the bottom because that's just going to look messy. I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to attach more glue. I'm going to wrap this around. Make sure to pull off any glue residue that's stuck on here. And one more spot of glue should do it. I like to stick this down slowly because I want to make sure that the glue is not going to seep out from the bottom over here. And if it does, I just wipe it away quickly before it really sets in. That's it. There's your tassel. All done.